My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again.
Almost overnight, she's a different dog.
Perfect poops.
When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply real meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of highly processed pellets. No tricks, just smarter, healthier pet food delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do. Get 50% off your first order at thefarmersdog.com/nomagicfifty.
If you're in the market for investment-worthy bags, watches, and fine jewelry, Rebag is the answer. Rebag is a luxury resale marketplace where each piece is carefully vetted and verified by experts to ensure quality and authenticity. If you're in the market, use Rebag to buy and sell finds from the world's top brands, including Hermes, Chanel, and Cartier. Head to Rebag.com to get 10% off your first purchase with code REBAG10. Shop today at Rebag.com. That's REBAG.com. And use promo code REBAG10 for 10% off your first purchase.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor, coming off a Tuesday night Kansas State basketball victory. Oh, so much to talk about, including I'm sure we'll have lots of questions about TCU coming within a whisker of beating Georgia.
Missed it by that much.
That much. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, that was Cole Carmody, and Ryan Gilbert, and two lazy-ass dogs in our little studio here, not far from the facilities. The boys are fighting across the table for me. I think they're jockeying for space in the little confined spaces we have. That was not a good game for me last night, Gilbert. Let's talk about gambling.
I don't know what gambling is.
I would have bet the over every time. But, man, Oklahoma State might have put some stuff on film there for everyone to try to follow. They muddied up a game pretty good. But a win is a win, ask the Kansas Jayhawks. They're still calling fouls on Oklahoma.
Amy and Doug in the same place? Yikes.
Yeah.
Doug might be losing his spot with Kip.
Oh
Kip is rising in the power rankings of officials.
Okay, so we're talking about officials now, and I've noticed this. Kip was a good official. Jerry Pollard used to be a really good official. And they get to the point where they think their call is right simply because they're making it. And I notice it a lot on out-of-bounds plays. They don't give two craps about what actually happens. They just kind of point. They just kind of, and they get it wrong so often. You know, it's obviously wrong, and they just point. They want to be dramatic. It's just
I can't get over Kip. Kip saw the player push Desi down.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I don't understand.
And then
if you blow the whistle and stop the game,
Kip stops the game because he saw it.
Yeah.
Eric had it on the Jumbotron easy. Like, it was clear. He went around the goal and was filming Desi, and he just pushes him down on video.
Now look,
how do you not
even if you
see that?
Even if you're the official and notice that, okay, Desi played that up a lot, you still can't push another player like that. It's not in the course of the game.
With the new rule, call flop then. Call something.
Yeah.
Did you hear what Tank said? You hear what Tank said after the game?
What?
So I asked him, this was the very last question. I was like, nobody asked this question. I feel like the fans want to know. So I asked him, I said, well, did you get an explanation on the no call? And he just smiled and he said, they said it was incidental and he was trying to get up.
Oh, my God. That's not even close to what happened.
No.
That just goes to show that they're just
It probably wasn't the worst call. When one of those guys stepped out of bounds and he wasn't even looking, they showed the replay and his eyes were away from his feet. He missed a blatant out of bounds call.
Didn't they miss Oklahoma State ran the sideline when it was a spot?
No, I didn't see that.
I'm pretty sure.
Man, it was a mess. Literally, as I tweeted, it looked like they enjoyed half-price margaritas before the game at Applebee's. They were out of
Lucha.
it.
I wasn't supposed to say this, but I served him a few drinks before the game. Yeah.
That's good. Look, let's be honest here. If you had served them actual drinks at the bar at which you work, they would have been better officials.
I would have slid them a 20 and said, hey, give K-State a few
whole
calls.
20? Whole 20? Wow.
Maybe 25.
Here at Go PowerCat, we believe in paying off game officials to get victories. Follow along for other ways to cheat the system at Go PowerCat.
Maybe they went to the Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Yeah, that's good. I like how Coles gets me back on track.
Where's that located?
That's
Timothy?
at the corner of this and that, right up the street from here. In fact, I could hit it if I had Michael Bishop's arm from here. Well, maybe not, but we'd come close.
Uncle Rico could definitely hit it.
Okay. I don't know that reference.
It's Napoleon Dynamite.
Thank you.
I know, but so long ago. He was bragging about his arm? Is that what it was?
Yeah, throw it over the mountains over there.
Okay. But get into the fridge. Just go. Go get yourself some Tang Time.
They sell that there now?
I think they do. I saw a can of it being consumed by someone. I don't know why that's not selling like crazy. Sour beer, that's why. Anyhow, let's get on with your questions from Wabash Station. Mr. Cole Schmarmedy has your first round of questions.
Cole, did you hear that?
Yep.
Oh, you're talking to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mispronounced your name.
Okay.
Schmoll Schmarmedy with your question.
First question comes from 3G Wildcat. How did this happen fast?
My wife asks me that all the time. Yeah.
No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
But
the transfer portal. I mean, it's just a total, complete game changer for basketball, even more than football. I mean, we're seeing it's happening in Missouri too. They're off to rocking and rolling pretty good. Not as good as Kansas State, but yeah, I mean, you can just go remake your team in 1 year. It's absolutely incredible. If you use the portal wisely, which both Dennis Gates and Jerome Tang have done, then you can bring in the right guys for what you want. And that's really amazing when you go back and look at the attempts of the portal. They were very specific on some of these kids, and we're like, what are you doing? And now we understand. They were after a particular type of player and type of personality that could mesh together, and they found it. It's incredible.
I almost think I'm with you on the transfer portal, Fitz, but the reason why this is happening at the rate it's happening is because of a player who was on the roster, and his name is Marquise Noel. It's impossible to deny the fact that without the way Marquise is performing, K-State would not be where they are. I mean, that's just the honest truth.
Well,
he's playing at an All-American level. I mean, he is, and Tang has found a way to get the best out of him.
And that's the other layer here, is that this staff is really good about developing and getting something out of players. We were talking about it before we rolled, and maybe this is a question why we're talking about it, but the way Ish Massoud didn't play, and now Ish is seeing the court, and granted, even if Jerome Tang wants to deny it, a big part is because Gassan's injured, but he has clearly taken advantage of it, and they're now beginning to understand what each specific player can bring to them. And post-game radio, Tang just bragged about Tyke Green, another guy that didn't see the court for a while, and the kind of defense he had played in key stretches of the game, he would credit it for, maybe saving the day. So they're able to bring things out of players, and sometimes it takes them a while to realize exactly what the gifts are that they bring. And this is something good coaches do. I see roles for these guys pretty well defined, and the guys seem to understand the roles. As K-State was in some trouble offensively, and again, Desi Seals gets in the lane and starts making things happen, starts breaking down defense, and he's so good getting to the hole. So, yeah, it's a masterful job of coaching and recruiting, but at the end of the day, he's got players playing, I think, at a higher level than anyone expected.
I think this is a rebuild. That's why why it happened fast. It's not an elevation. This is a complete rebuild. I don't care what you call it. There's 11 out of 13 guys are
That's
brand
a rebuild
new.
of the roster, yeah.
That's brand new, and you get lucky, I would say. I don't want to discredit Marquise Noel, but I don't think anybody expected this from Marquise Noel. And K-State isn't in the position they are without him. But this is truly a rebuild. This is not anything from last year. This is a completely different team.
I think Marquise expected it. I think that's important because you have to have that confidence as a player, and he has that confidence. If he doesn't have the confidence that he that Tang has instilled in him, they have given him the tools to say, okay, this is your team, and he is taking it and he is running with it. I think that he has been just as important as Keontae Johnson has to, if not more important, to where this team is at right now, because that's a guy we haven't even talked about is Keontae, but that is one of those additions to where K-State added him, and a lot of people really didn't know what they were going to get. But Keontae has immediately turned into one of the best players in college basketball. You have two of the best players in the conference on your team, K-State fans. That is why this is happening so fast. Tanks talked about they got dudes. I mean, let's face it. The reason why they're winning is because they are better basketball players than who they're going up against, and it starts with Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson. That's how I believe.
Keontae is just a matchup nightmare. He did not play well against Oklahoma State. They did a good job of kind of messing with him, but he is so strong. He does things that just remind me of Mitch Richmond. But I saw when he took an outside shot early in the game last night, I'm like, his shot, that didn't look right at all. So I think he just had one of those nights where the ball wasn't coming off his hand right or something. But when the game got competitive, this kid rises up. I mean, he makes plays when they need to.
Yeah, Johnson's been huge, and I'm sorry, but Noel is not the player he is without Johnson, at all. And you can look back to last year, and Nigel Pack was a really good player, but he was a spot shooter, and that was really his only strong suit. His defense was, average, and maybe he could have been a little quicker. So Noel to have a guy like Keontae to work around, I don't want to take a shot at Pack when I say that. I hope I didn't, but Johnson's just a different type of player.
Well, and so many of these players have that instinct to get to the rim. My point guard's driving, I got to make myself available for a pass. And then, oh, by the way, they can catch the ball. Which, honestly, how long has it been since we saw a K-State post player catch the ball as well as Gassan or Bebe or Ish when he's playing that spot? And certainly, Naquan Tomlin, I mean, he's got great hands. And that doesn't even bring up Keontae, who, that lob dunk was fantastic, but it wasn't a great pass. And he made it happen. So not only does K-State score and kind of get the back-breaking play in the game, but Marquise gets an assist that would have been a turnover last year probably.
And Keontae also needs Marquise to be successful. I think last night's an example of that. I mean, Keontae had an off night, and you have other guys like Marquise. You have a guy like Cam Carter able to pick up the slack. I mean, that's what makes this team so good, and that's why, to answer this question, 3G Wildcat, it's happened so fast. They're playing off of each other. I mean, that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to.
And at Baylor in the postgame, when we had those two guys, you could see how happy Keontae is for Marquise because it makes his life easier too. They can't just focus on him. So let's just put it this way. They're going to run into some losses. But right now, everyone is damn happy to be a part of this program because you think it's fun for the fans on the outside or even the media covering it from the outside. I can't imagine how much fun they're having on the inside.
I'm excited for K-State to lose at some point. Because then we see the true leadership of how they can step up through adversity. It's going to happen at some point.
Well, maybe not. Maybe they're going to win every game and hang a banner. That's just me being. That's realistic, I think.
I would agree.
I mean, it's on pace.
Next question comes from Exhausted Nihilist. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about basketball roster depth?
0.
Well, if they get injuries, yeah, I'm worried about it. But I mean, they've got one injury now. If they get 2 more, then you got some problems.
Well, that's the same. That's the same for any team, though, right?
No, most teams aren't redshirting 3 guys. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Why the NCAA, and I'm going to write this down as a daily deliver, why the NCAA allows football players to play a third of the season, but not basketball players, doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
You should be able to play some and maintain your red shirt.
Same thing with baseball.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean,
football's got it wrong. I like how basketball does it.
Like,
maybe
play it all and you're done?
So you're saying
there's an injury that happens, then sure, but football, you just have to scheme around 4 games and there's such a strategy. That's not how a red shirt should work.
You think it should be the old way of you're either playing
if something happens, you got to burn a year, fine. But
I think the rules need to be, unanimous across the board. But as far as this question goes, I'm not concerned about the depth at all. I mean, they're showing what they can do with 8 guys. And when they get Gassan back, that'll be 9.
10. All right.
I mean,
Finister, if you count Dorian, he hasn't gotten in.
Yeah.
But there is going to come a point in time where Dorian will have to play. He's not redshirted. So there will be a point in time where somebody will get hurt, somebody will get dinged up at that guard position, and he's going to have to come in and play 6 or 7 minutes a game because it just simply, that's how the season works, right? Things happen, people get hurt, people get sick, right? How many times do we see that with Bruce Weber? So, there's going to come a point in time where Dorian's going to have to play. But again, I'll go back to this. These guys bust their butt in practice, according to what Coach Tang says, and they will be ready for that moment. And my worry about depth right now is less than one, like Ryan said, because I just think that they have guys that are able to come in and pick up the slack. I mean, look at Ish. When David got hurt, I think people were very much wondering if Masood or what Bebe was going to do, like what is that 5 spot going to look like? And both those guys have come in and really solidified that position to the point where you don't even really feel David Gassan's loss. So when they do get him back, it's only going to make the team better. I'm not worried about depth. I was a little bit worried, and maybe we'll start to see some fatigue set in. And Fitz, maybe that was why Keontae Johnson struggled last night. He looked a little tired. Maybe that was part of it after playing 2 really tough games. We'll see what happens, but I'm not worried about depth at all.
I'm probably at a 5 just because you have the one injury. If you get another injury, you're probably more than a 5 on your worry scale. Mm-hmm. You get David Gasson back, you're probably down to a 2 or a 3. Because they have shown with the guys they have and the fitness that they're capable of, they're fine. They're fine as they are. 8 guys, 9 guys, they're getting it done with what they have. But you turn that into 7, 8 guys, that's where it gets worrying, that there's not enough guys that you look at on the bench and you're like, he can come in and score 10 points and take care of business. It's you're flirting with that line of not having enough guys if another guy goes down.
Depth, in my opinion, is anybody past Johnson and Noel. And I know we were very high on Tomlin, halfway through the non-con, and I think he's taken a step back in terms of just going up against, more physical and athletic competition in the Big 12. And, we know he's been playing for only a few years organized basketball, so there was going to be a learning curve, and it's starting to show itself in Big 12 play. So I think a lot of us kind of believed it was a 3-man crew with Johnson, Noel, and Tomlin, and now I think it's kind of just Johnson and Noel, because Naquan has a lot of learning to do. And Tang talked about his foul trouble and how they don't necessarily trust him 100% to not go in there and pick up a third foul in a first half or something like that. So Carter, obviously he's a good player, but I consider that as a depth guy because he's a guy that is capable of scoring a lot on any given night, but it's not necessarily it's not expected of Carter to go out and do that. Yeah, it's not his role. He's more of a role player because of Noel and Johnson's success. So the depth doesn't concern me. If injuries add up, then sure. But I think as of right now, Masood, Green, Sills. I don't think we've talked about Sills, have we? Like they step on the court. I don't feel anxious when they step on the court. So, Sills has been a great, he's kind of embraced that role as the 6th man of this team, and he provides just really good energy. It reminds me of Jamar Samuels when he'd come in and, give the team a boost off the bench.
Agreed.
Next question comes from Danger Cat. When do you think the current state of K-State basketball feel quote-unquote normal? Sooner or later, winning games and being good will just be the norm, but I don't think we're there just yet.
Didn't it feel like K-State was playing KU last night?
No.
After the game, all the fans stuck around instead of just bolting for the exits?
I'm with you, Ryan.
Well, not quite, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It's different. That was the most active and engaged midweek crowd outside of a KU game that I remember in a very long time. And don't take this as a shot, but maybe going back to Frank. I mean, they're so invested in the head coach. And that's an important element for K-State fans, whatever the reason. They were invested in Bill Snyder. They weren't invested in Ron Prince. They quickly figured out that wasn't a good fit. They were invested in Kleiman. And they certainly are invested with Jerome Tang because, I just came across one of these K-State footballers putting up the photos of the year, and there's Tang wall-bashing in, Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Just stuff like that. It's amazing. But, yeah, the crowd was great. Took a little warming up to do because it was kind of an ugly game. Credit to Oklahoma State. They came out and, just kind of made things ugly and made it a defensive game, which isn't K-State's normal MO, but boy, K-State responded. They figured out how to play enough defense.
Oklahoma State did the same thing in Lawrence. They were up by 15 at halftime.
Yep.
So this is not a bad Oklahoma State team. I think that the normal, when we talk about normal for K-State basketball, the expectation is going to be, like Jerome Tang has said, you have to win, or you want to win all of your home games. I think that is becoming more of a realistic possibility. And how much longer is this, I don't want to say honeymoon effect, going to last with the staff, with these players, and selling out these home games? But you're going to have a realistic opportunity to turn this place back into a real home court advantage, because it was one last night. I mean, K-State at one point in that game went on a run where they were down by 1 point, I want to say. Then they ended up, and you look up at the scoreboard, and they're up by 10. I mean, they went on one of those runs that we don't normally see in Bramlage Coliseum. I mean, this team's going to be good again next year. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. When you can have a staff that can put together teams like they've shown that they can do with this group, I think that the quote unquote normal is going to be towards the end of the year and next year. I mean, guys, a week and a half ago, we're sitting here talking about how this team can make the NCAA tournament, and now we're talking about how they might have a chance to finish in the top 3 in the conference and get a top 3 or a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like, that is the expectation for Jerome Tang. He talked in his post-game press conference. Can these guys get us to the NCAA tournament? Looking at the old group, they said they didn't think so. They went out and got this group of guys, and they are where they are. I mean, I think that the expectation of winning games and competing in the top half and winning the conference, I think that is the expectation. And it's the expectation by the staff, and they want the fans to understand that. That's important too.
I think the key for me last night is the students still are not fully back. You had a lot of people in the student sections sitting down, not cheering loudly like the students normally do when they're here. This changes when you have this good if this season shapes up to what it's shaping up to be. If K-State finishes in the top half of the conference, top 4, top 3, top 2, whatever, the students will start coming back, and it'll be a priority for them to line up before games, camp out maybe, to get a good seat. It'll become what it used to be. And I think that this changes a year from now when it's break in 2024 and you have those 2 or 3 home games during winter break. The students used to show up during those breaks when Frank was around, when K-State was good with what we remember it as. If that starts happening again, I think that's when K-State's back, is when students make it a priority. Because, back before 10 years ago, K-State football, they weren't playing on Thanksgiving break. They weren't playing on those Saturdays. Now, K-State and the Big 12 and everywhere else, they're playing on that Thanksgiving Friday or Saturday or whatever day, they want to play it on. The students absolutely come back for those games. So I think that when you see the same thing happening for basketball during winter break, I think that's when the realization is, hey, K-State's back.
I think it's hard to pin that. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's hard for a lot of the students because there is a lot of students that aren't in, even go to school in Kansas that go to these games. I mean, at least with Thanksgiving break, you have the classes that start on Monday, but sometimes over winter break, you're not having classes for another 2 weeks. So I understand that point, but I'm not going to sit here and not, I know you're not bashing the students, but I'm not going to sit here and say that this is on the students, because that was the 2 sections they had were full. I mean, it was that those students showed up. It was full, and it was loud. So,
it should be 6 sections.
I get that, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the students' fault, because
there's no fault here. I'm just saying, when will K-State basketball feel good again? Because what Danger Cat is saying is that it still doesn't feel back, and I'm just saying it'll feel back when the students are back and they are fully invested. And when you have these early January games is when, that's where you can get some wins, have some home court advantage, because you go to Texas or Baylor or wherever else when the students are gone. It's an easier time. It's an easier time in the league. And KU certainly isn't like that. KU fans can drive over from Johnson County and go to a game during winter break. They can make it. So it's not unrealistic to expect K-State students to be able to come back during break, especially for a midweek game, and just go back home if that's what they want to do.
I agree.
Simply put, Danger Cat, real quick, I'll be simple. Just in a few games, I think it'll feel a lot more normal.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, I think, they go to TCU and then they come back and you get the students in KU. Again, another topic we just brushed over before we started. If they win these 2 games, I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about a time where the energy on campus was matched. You go to TCU and beat a really good team and come home and beat Kansas, it just might explode. It just might be incredible. So I'm looking forward to it. Unfortunately, the damn game's on a Tuesday night. Just ridiculous. I think KUK State should either be Big Monday or Saturday every freaking game.
You got to earn that respect, and they haven't. I mean, that's the cold hard truth. You have to earn that respect, and K-State has not earned that respect the past few seasons.
At least the game is on ESPN.
Right. I agree with that in some ways, but if you still look at when people break down basketball rivalries, this still shows up, and people regard it as one of the top ones in the country.
Yep. Next question comes from Darren Sproul's superfan. I was listening to Craig Smoke and the guys last week. They're extremely high on Coach Tang and love the guy. They seem to think he will be like Huggins and be gone after this season. I don't see that happening based on the fact he spent so long at Baylor and has embraced the program so much. I think some are reading too much into his comments, but is this a one-and-done realistic possibility with Coach Tang?
No. Look, a possibility, of course it is. But if you see how he interacts with the students, I just don't see how he's going to leave. And I'm going to say it again, I'm not worried one bit about Texas. I don't think this man is motivated by the money, which they can throw at him. I think he's motivated by other things. And being able to be, I'll just say it, being able to be openly religious at a state institution and the fans don't get upset and the administration doesn't get upset is becoming rare. And it's certainly, I can't see it happening at Texas without some people pushing back on it. And also, Texas doesn't value basketball in any way.
Bingo.
As a culture, as a fan base, and maybe even as an athletic department. That is not where their emphasis is at. And Jerome Tang came to K-State because he knows it's important here. He knew the history that we've all talked about, and so many people are like, well, that was a long time ago. People in basketball know the history. They know that this is a sleeping giant that has the potential. And, folks, a big part of it is you. That fan engagement that we're talking about doesn't match what we've seen in the past. It's still better than 95% of the schools out there. It just is. So I don't see him doing it. And here's another layer. I think the NIL has activated a whole nother subset of K-State fans. And we saw it happen with money wasn't the reason Brad Underwood didn't come to K-State. They were able to get the money from the donors to pay Brad Underwood. We're going to see something, I think, happen this offseason where the money people are going to say, we ain't letting these two coaches go. Money won't be the problem unless you're an SEC school willing to pay $9 million to a football coach or, a basketball program that wants to lay out that kind of money. I just don't. I think they're going to put them in the, $6-7 million range at some point here. That'll just kind of make that moot. Maybe K-State will always be a step behind, but that's where everything else about your culture comes into play. Shaka Smart took the money and went to Texas. And if that isn't a lesson for Jerome Tang and other coaches, I don't know what is. Because you know what happened? The second Shaka escaped that culture again, he's winning at Marquette. It's not about the money or the size of the budget. It's about the place and the people as much as anything. And you can ruin your career pretty quickly by taking the money. And maybe that's all you want. Maybe you just, look, Texas is going to offer me generational wealth for a 6-year contract at $7 million a year. I can't pass it up. Okay. But I just suspect Jerome Tang wants something greater than the cash.
If people are still mad about his comments in the press conference, I encourage them to go back and watch that whole thing. There was clips that were floating around on Twitter, but until you watch it in context, I don't think you truly get an understanding of what he's trying to say and what he is saying. The second thing is there's a lot of people that I have seen on social media who basically are poor me poor me, K-State fans that say, oh, he's gone. This is a foregone conclusion. Nothing ever good happens at K-State. And if you really think that is going to be the case, then you need to pay more attention, because if you go and you watch a game, and after the game K-State wins and Jerome Tang is the first one doing the Wabash Cannonball with the students for the entire song, you sit there and you tell me that guy is going to Texas.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because if you truly think that after that, then you're delusional, because he's not.
He's not.
I don't think he's going to Texas, but I think his comments, I think he's going to stay. I think he stays. I think he gets an extension. He'll get more money. I'm not worried about Jerome Tang leaving, but what worries me is just, like you said, the press conference comments. It feels like he's dancing and dodging around as if like his agent says, hey, don't shoot down any rumors, don't say anything, just, kind of, we want to get you the most money kind of thing. Don't outright deny that you're going anywhere, basically. Don't shut doors to places that, hey, may want to pay you a whole bunch of money. I think Fitz is right. Jerome Tang is motivated by other things than money. But if you had to ask me between Chris Kleiman and Jerome Tang after this season, or after their respective seasons, which coach has the more likely chance of being gone when they're done this year, it's Jerome Tang. I mean, Jerome Tang has infinitely grown since the day he was hired as far as a candidate for any head coaching job in the country. And it's kind of one of those things, when you look at football recruiting, maybe basketball recruiting a little bit, once they get a K-State offer, they start getting offers from everywhere else. K-State's kind of like that marker in the sports world, in the college sports world. Hey, they took Jerome Tang. Let's see how that goes. Oh, that's going good? Well, hey, he's legit now. K-State proved to us that he's legitimate. It's just kind of this thing that I see, and I'm not worried that Jerome Tang's going to leave, but he has certainly put his name on the map, and the opportunity exists for him to be thrown a lot of money elsewhere.
Anyone that thinks Tang is going somewhere anytime soon does simply not know what they're talking about. Like Jeff Goodman throwing his name on his article. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. You do not know Jerome Tang. You don't know how involved he's been with the fans. Cole, you mentioned him doing the Wabash in front of the student section. I mean, John Rothstein saying that David Gasson is a shoulder injury. Like, do you see the guy in a walking boot? Like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. So if it comes from us or any of our colleagues, on On3 or Rivals, whoever that may be, then sure, maybe you want to entertain it. But people do not know what they're talking about linking Tang to the Texas job.
I agree totally. I don't see it. I just don't see it as a cultural fit. But that doesn't mean there isn't one out there. I'm going to speculate. But I think this, again, I'm coming back to this. This is one of the few state institutions I think Jerome Tang can be himself. And, it's just a changing landscape in our educational world. It just is. So outside of other religious institutions, but which ones are going to take basketball as seriously? Folks, I got news for you. Part of the reason why he appreciates what K-State fans do, and he'll never say it, he never saw this at Baylor. This is not part of their culture. If you've ever been to one game at Baylor, even when they were rock and rolling, even when they were winning a national championship, it never rocked like that. And they very rarely sell out a small arena. It just isn't culturally something they're invested in. It's Texas football. It's football down there.
Baylor does not have a rich tradition like Kansas State has in basketball.
No, absolutely not. So that's part of why he knows it's special and he knows it's rare what he's got here. So there's a lot of things you're going to have to produce for Jerome Tang that go beyond money.
Enjoy the ride if you're a fan. Just enjoy this season. The last question of the first half comes from Adam K63. If the Big 12 and TV networks can schedule football games 12 days in advance, why can't they do it for basketball to get better teams off ESPN Plus?
They kind of do.
I agree.
They do the.
We got more lawn maintenance going on outside.
Uh-oh, Daphne.
They'll do the ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU kind of slash things on the schedule, and then at a later date they'll pick. But That's not exactly the question about getting better games off of ESPN Plus.
I feel like I should read this question in like a Seinfeld voice because I feel like this is just like a ranting question. Like I feel like there's something more traumatic behind this, Adam. But it doesn't make any sense to me.
Nobody expected K-State to be good this year, so like I can't complain about it too much. But this team right now should not be on a streaming service. It shouldn't.
And you just hope that it doesn't hurt their seating in March, right? I mean,
I don't think it matters. I think by the time it matters, you're watching tournaments that are televised, and you're watching, by the end of the season, if you're a good team, you're going to be watchable.
Yeah,
I get that.
Playing in the Big 12 gets you all the exposure you need.
Yeah.
It just sucks that you don't have more national recognition from playing on Longhorn Network and then immediately turning around and playing on ESPN Plus in back-to-back road games where you knock off 2 top 25 teams. That part I do feel strongly about. That shouldn't. I don't think you should ever have that be the case where you have literally 2 straight games on subscription services in the Big 12. That shouldn't be allowed. But what do I know?
You don't know anything.
I know.
I still contend that having ESPN Plus is not a big deal.
Well, for national people, though, like not just for K-State fans, for the national audience.
But for a game like that where K-State's trying to prove themselves, yes, but K-State absolutely deserved to be on the Longhorn Network and on ESPN Plus for those games, and they get to play KU on ESPN. It's about as much as you can ask for what this K-State team was before the season. Now, if we want to talk later in the year, if there's K-State versus whoever the third seeded team is, that's not going to be KU. Is it Baylor, Iowa State, someone like that? Yeah, sure. Maybe one of those games shouldn't be on ESPN Plus. But by then, if K-State and whoever else has earned the notability, people will tune into that game if it is the best game on television that night.
But this is ridiculous. When K-State goes to Lawrence and plays in KU, it's on freaking ESPN Plus.
Yeah, that one doesn't make sense.
That is ridiculous.
They might flex that off. ESPN can flex that off if they want. If it's within their own network, they can do it. But I'll be interested.
That's ridiculous.
But again, you got to understand, they don't look at that as a demotion. They're looking at this. We've invested a lot of money in ESPN Plus. We've got one of the nation's strongest basketball fan bases with a bunch of nut jobs that wear purple everywhere. These are exactly the kind of fans that are so invested in their teams that they'll literally invest in ESPN Plus. They want to sell subscriptions. And, they if you've been following along, ESPN Plus has been very profitable for them. It has achieved beyond what they thought it would be. And so they're looking at a way to continue in a growth area of their budget.
I mean, a top 10 matchup between K-State and KU and Allen Fieldhouse very well could be the most watched live event on ESPN Plus for the entire year, and we're a month in.
But think about how many more people would have watched it had it been on ESPN.
Maybe more, but ESPN,
for their perspective,
ESPN makes way more money having that game on ESPN Plus, and they're happy about it because it's once you get in to the actual stream and you're watching it on your television, it doesn't look any different than ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPNU. It's just the matter of typing in the web address or whatever and clicking on something on a smart remote to get you to the game. That's all that matters.
I understand that, but then why don't in the football, like Adam brings up in this question, then why don't they schedule a top 10 football matchups on ESPN Plus? Like if it's all about making money, you think people are going to tune in, then why are they putting good teams on this platform for basketball, but they're not doing it for football? That is the core of this question.
I think
they've put K-State and Oklahoma State on there. Those are probably some of the best games.
Yeah, I think they put some good games on Plus, but keep in mind that they don't have any competition for the good games. ESPN has them. I mean, in the future, Fox is going to have some of those games. And that might change how they approach it. Because I tell you what, if ESPN in a picking process says, well, we picked this game for ESPN and then Fox has a pick and they're left K-State on the table, Fox is taking that game. So I think it'll change. In football, they have the competition with Fox wanting good games too.
Zach, you mentioned it is the same once you turn on ESPN or ESPN Plus, whatever it's on, but the production quality does drop off sometimes. Like K-State HDTV here does a very good job.
Yes.
There's never any issues, but like that Baylor game on Saturday had a lot of issues. in that game. And the announcers, you don't get Fran Fraschilla as much. I think he does do plus games.
But when you get K-State and KU, that's going to be a premium production from ESPN.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be worried about that experience. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be a KU in-house or even K-State in-house type of thing. They will bring in their guys like they do for football.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
That was it. I wasn't paying enough attention. We're going to continue the K-State Sports Talk and leaf removal from outside of the studio here on the second half of the Power Cat Questions podcast. Stick with us. We were really long-winded the first half. It was all Ryan Gilbert's fault.
GoPowerCat.com's Power Cat podcast continues after this short break.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com, code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com, code podcast.
Welcome back to the Power Cat podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions podcast, where we just came to the conclusion in the break that these guys work for an idiot. I am that idiot, Tim Fitzgerald, and I'm here with Zach Carlson, Cole Carmody, and Ryan Gilbert, and two adorable poodles. Very large, one fat poodle. That was you, dude. Here in the GPC studios. We're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge. You might be coming to town next Tuesday night for some reason. I'm just going to say this. I'm sure your local liquor store is a fine place owned by a friend, but the liquor at the Fridge is fresh off the booze tree. They pick it every morning in the Fridge fields. They're growing the booze out there for you. It's freshly picked off the trees and brought to the store. It's like farm to table, but it's farm to booze to mouth.
Do you know what time they open?
In the morning.
Okay, so
9 a.m. I think.
Okay, so if you are a student who is of legal age and you plan on going to the KU K-State basketball game next week,
I like what you're going with.
I highly recommend stopping by the Fridge on your way to line up for the game. It will make the time go by faster. I don't know if you're technically allowed to do that on property or not, but
we're not encouraging you to break state law.
It's breaking the law.
It's only breaking the law if you get caught, okay?
Right, exactly. And we're not going to encourage you to take a flask, buy a plastic one, into the line or the game. But if you can, if you have room next to the chicken under your coat, that you're going to sneak into the game, go ahead and put some booze in there too. Mm-hmm. But just hypothetically speaking, it will make you a better fan if you're so inclined.
Only if you get it from the Fridge, though.
Only from the Fridge. It's the freshest booze off the booze tree right here in the corner of this and that in this town in which I live, and I even screwed that up. Let's go with your questions from Wabash Station. Is Ryan Gilbert taking over? Is Cole still got it?
We got a little football action.
Oh, you're taking over?
We got a little football action, yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Here's
First question from Ema in Iowa. When will the damn 2023 football conference schedule be out? And I'm sorry for cursing, but part of the question.
Hey, it wasn't bleeped out, censored on Wabash, so you can say damn.
First of all, Ema, I hope you're enjoying heaven.
It's not. It's Iowa. That's a baseball thing.
Okay.
It's not really true for anything else other than that movie. Look, this is a fascinating topic. The schedule was done. It was done in early December, and Brett Yormark said at the Big 12 Championship, I think it'll be released next week. And then Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Oh, Nebraska? Wow.
And Oklahoma and Texas.
Texas A&M too?
Yeah.
Colorado?
Might as well.
Mizzou?
They didn't like something, and then they started talking about leaving a year early. I think there were some issues with that original schedule. It's my understanding that some Big 8 schools weren't playing Oklahoma, and some Southwestern Conference schools weren't playing Texas, and that's just idiotic. So I think it got pulled back for that. But I think the schedules were also designed as a 2-year cycle, and now Oklahoma and Texas are wanting to leave, and so now they're probably approaching it differently. I don't know what's going on. And I think this is also an indication that there's a possibility they won't be here next year. Mm-hmm. I think that's still out there. Because why not? I mean, if they're going to be back next year, just announce the schedule. And if you don't have the second half of the sequence of it, so what? I mean, it's just going to be a weird year anyhow with 14 schools. Is it also possible that there's something going on with the Pac-12 still in this? Not for next year, but that maybe it'll sequence out that programs will come in 24? They haven't announced their TV partners, which... Thank you, dude. Would be an indication to me that the contract numbers aren't nearly what they needed to be, and they're kicking the can down the road because as soon as they announce the contract numbers, members will leave. And if they're not even going to be competitive with the Big 12, I mean, I think that would blow up everything George Kliavkoff, or whatever his name is, has been saying to his members.
Here's what I want to know when it comes to K-State specifically. Is there any indication that teams might have to go on the road at the same place they played at this year?
Oh, yeah. There's going to be repeat games.
There will be repeat games.
There's going to be repeat games.
Yeah, it's a totally outlier schedule. And I think that's trying to make that balance out probably. You probably don't want to force a rival to go back-to-back. You probably want to keep that sequence in. There's so many moving parts that even...
K-State and KU did that.
Yeah.
Well, back-to-back.
Yeah.
At KU.
But that was like a home field advantage for K-State. It wasn't fair to KU. There's just a lot of moving parts here. But I think the biggest was, I don't know if this is right. Someone told me K-State wasn't playing Oklahoma next year, and that just doesn't make sense.
Oklahoma fans should be happy.
Well, they would be, but it doesn't make sense that, again, I laid out what I thought they should do with my scheduling, and that was one of the key components. Big 8 schools are playing Big 8 schools. Southwest Conference schools will play Southwest Conference schools. Oklahoma and Texas will play each other because those are separate groupings there, and they'll play all 4 of the newcomers.
Seems simple enough.
And that's their schedule.
Obviously not.
I don't know. They'll get it out eventually, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, obviously, because even the commish was like, "Oh, it's coming next week," and here we are, literally a month later, and it's not there, and it's nowhere to be found. And if you ask K-State people that are in the know, they're like, "Crickets, we're not hearing anything about any of this." So something's gone south. I think there's some pretty good negotiations,
or north if it's Pac-12,
or southeastern. Something's going south.
Southeastern.
Next question coming from Kat in Colorado. Man, we're all across the map today, aren't we?
Yeah,
so, everybody.
So my suspicions are the first question was from Iowa and this one's from Colorado. I'm just going to break it down that way.
Next question is going to be from Hutchinson.
Oh, boy.
You guys want to take odds on where the last one's from? I don't think there's any context clues there.
Sorry.
Michael Bishop finally made it to the College Football Hall of Fame. Who is next for Kansas State?
Wow. Jordy?
It's a good one.
Maybe.
Adrian Lara.
Wow,
that was a name out of left field.
That really was. That was what made it funny. Kid has never played.
I know.
Tyler Lockett, probably.
Yeah, Tyler.
I think Tyler.
Yeah, it'll be.
But beyond that, Deuce
Vaughn.
Will Howard.
He wins a Heisman.
Yeah.
I'll say Grant Gregory.
That's good. Yeah, they've got a whole. Like a whole wing of the College Football Hall of Fame for players that had a bad wing.
So I know our own KNET has the Hall of Very Good on Wabash Station,
which I think is a great idea.
Can KNET, can you start a Hall of Very Not Very Good and include Grant Gregory there, along with Carson Kaufman?
Don't be crapping on my guy Grant Gregory.
Sorry,
quit talking about the late 2000s like that.
Yeah. To answer this question, though, it's got to be Jordy, right? He's got to be the next one.
I would think so.
I mean, all the guys we think of were, is everybody on the Ring of Honor have a chance to make the College Football Hall of Fame? Let me ask that question.
No.
No Darren Howard?
No. Arthur Brown, no. El Roberson, no.
No, L's done.
You think L's done?
L barely had the. I love L, but he barely had the resume to get into.
Don't you need to be an All-American?
What?
Like for college?
I think so.
For the College Hall of Fame, I feel like there's more. There's higher criteria for.
But for Michael wasn't. I don't think he won the Unitas Award. Maybe that got him.
So we're saying Jordy and Tyler, and
I would think so.
Deuce.
And then Deuce Vaughn?
And I would agree with Darren Harrod would be a worthy selection, but I'd have to.
Very good.
Yeah, but I'd have to look at his stats and compare it to some of these guys. Maybe you would.
When you look at the rest of this class is loaded.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it, but I'm not surprised.
No, we probably should take a moment to thank Bill Snyder, because I think he went to bat with a lot of voters, making personal contact. Probably he did a lot of education. You realize when people say they're running the Wildcat, they're running Michael Bishop's offense. That's what the Wildcat is. And there's probably a lot of younger voters or voters that just weren't paying enough attention to understand the kind of impact Mike had on college football and everything that followed. Not just college football now, guys. We see the Wildcat being run in the NFL once in a while, and, certainly at the high school level. So it's impacted all of football.
From Salt Hawk Cat from Hutchinson.
Why would you?
We assume.
Yeah.
Presume.
I mean, you know what? Maybe he's just salty.
I'm salty.
What about the Hawk part?
He's a Jayhawk.
Oh. Okay.
He's also a cat. His question is, or her, so do you honestly think K-State has a chance to win a football title after seeing what Georgia did to TCU?
If I'm just going to say this, if the likes of Georgia and Alabama show up and are locked and loaded, no. But I don't think Ohio State was very good, and they about beat Georgia. Now, it gets into some complexities here. We had our little text conversation going, and Ryan Wallace is right. You got to have a certain kind of dude to compete along the line with an SEC school. Exactly the kind of dude you have at Texas, and they competed, and Ohio State, and they competed. But those schools aren't good enough along the lines to dominate a Texas or a Kansas State, or excuse me, a TCU or a Kansas State. So it's like they've got the talent, but they don't have the team. And TCU had the team, but not that level of freak athlete. And the problem is when Alabama, we saw at the Sugar Bowl, and we certainly saw it with Georgia when all hell broke loose. But if the talent and the team come together on that day, you're toast.
Why do we like the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
Let me ask you that. That's an honest question. Why do we like the NCAA tournament?
Because there's more parity across college basketball. You can have the hot night where a team can beat a really good team.
Okay.
I like it because it's on CBS instead of ESPN.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. I just feel like with an expanded playoff, the answer to this question is yes, because you are more likely to catch a Georgia, you are more likely to catch an Alabama on an off night. They're not. You don't have to be better than them. If you play them 10 times, you only got to beat them once.
Let's put it this way. If Ohio State completes the upset of Georgia, which they choked that one off, we can all recognize that, the national championship game is going to be really good because TCU's good enough to play with the athletes at Ohio State. The athletes at Ohio State are good enough to play. You see what I'm saying here? But the TCU team is a better team than Ohio State.
I agree. So, yeah, I mean, the answer to the question is yes. The expanded playoff changes everything. It throws a wrinkle into everything, and it makes a team like a K-State, like a Utah, like a Penn State, these teams that are right on the verge of breaking through, it gives them better opportunities because you can play your A game against a Georgia, and Georgia can play their C game, and you can win that game.
Right.
Now, if you both play A games, you might not win.
Right.
But the odds of that happening, how many times do we see in college football? K-State is not better than Oklahoma State at full strength, 48-0. But because K-State played their A game and Oklahoma State played their C game, K-State killed them.
Right.
Games like that happen. So, yeah, I mean, again, that did nothing for me. If anything, it just kind of proved to me more about TCU being they are a great team because of how they responded when things got tough, and they didn't get a chance to do that against Georgia because Georgia just annihilated them.
And I want to hang this too on the coaches. I thought TCU was woefully prepared. I thought they looked like a team just happy to be there. I mean, why they didn't move Max Duggan around in the pocket, why they didn't have quarterback designed runs with him. They just seemed to like handcuff themselves out of caution. We got to play this really cautiously. We can't turn the ball over. And then they didn't play their game in any way. It was a really pathetic and disgusting performance. I'd be pissed as a TCU fan. We finally get this chance, and this is all the better prepared you are mentally and physically. They look like, hey, we beat Michigan. We proved our point. Give us a paycheck.
NIL changes this too, regardless of how you feel about NIL, because a kid that wants to be profitable at a school like K-State is so much more profitable at a school like K-State than they are Georgia. Even when, I'll throw Trayshawn Ward, the new K-State running back, commit into this. He is going to be more valuable at a school like K-State than he is at another school that was recruiting him like Tennessee. Even if it's the same amount of money, he is more valuable at K-State because he will have a greater impact on the field, because people will be more willing to see that, hey, this is a guy that chose K-State over a school like Tennessee. Now you throw the expanded playoff into this. Not only do you have a chance to get these guys because of NIL and, just perception, but now you have a chance to compete for a championship, and you have that in your cap too with the expanded playoff. Again, I think we're going to see some more parity in college football. A lot of it has to do with the expanded playoff, but NIL is really changing things. And nothing. That game does nothing for me as far as thinking that the Big 12 is in a bad place or anything like that.
And on the flip side, with that expanded playoff, these SEC teams are going to catch each other. You're not necessarily going to have to play Georgia because they may have to play Alabama in the second round or something like that, And with more games, there's more chances of Georgia or whoever else having an off night and losing to a Pac-12 or a Big 10 or a Big 12 or an ACC team. So I think that you don't need to worry as much about the SEC and some of these better teams, because they will have off nights. They will get upset. And, kind of like K-State basketball in 2018 NCAA tournament, you may get to duck a lot of good teams, and the breaks may just catch right.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think we can all agree by season's end the two best teams in the country were Georgia and Alabama, at least the way Alabama played in the bowl game. And I like the fact they didn't make the playoff. How did it feel? When you have a really good season, at least what you think, and you lost a couple narrow games, you get left out. I know you're not used to playing by the same rules as everyone else, but that's what keeps other schools out. It didn't matter you lost by 1 point. You lost. But the expanded playoff means they're in. They wouldn't have been in the 5 seed because they're going to assign league champions, conference champions, the byes, which is kind of cool. So, I mean, you're going to see some teams end up going to home fields to play games. That'll be substantial. Just being included in the 12-team field can change your program. It can slowly escalate the type of athletes you can attract. And if you get competitive in the NIL space, you can start to compete for some of these 4 and maybe even 5-star players that might be looking for something other than getting thrown into an NFL-level locker room where you may never have a chance to play. And also, you're right. There are lots of guys bouncing out of those programs who are extremely capable of playing at the Big 12 and being competitive. And they just, maybe it's just pure raw talent over the player at some of these schools. And I think that's actually what gets a lot of SEC schools in trouble. They get a 5-star and they're going to play him, Missouri, whether he's productive or not, whether he's the best player for the spot. And that can spoil a locker room pretty damn fast. It's all a process. I think K-State and TCU will elevate their did we use the word elevate as much as we do now?
Elevate. I
mean, let's be honest. Did Jerome Tang make us use it? It's a great word, so we use it now. I think the teams such as K-State and TCU will elevate their recruiting now. We'll see it continue to go up because players that's a fun brand of football. Mm-hmm. I want to go there. Now, the NIL money matchup, Cole's right. The top recruit for Kansas State has more NIL potential at Kansas State than they do being the 20th recruit at Alabama. So we'll see how it just develops.
Okay, so I just want to clarify. Zach is happy, or excuse me, Cole is happy TCU lost, and Zach is upset TCU lost, right?
And I'm upset that TCU lost because I lost a lot of money.
Well, I'm disappointed in how they performed.
It was just the way it perceives the Big 12.
It was a disappointing
we had last week.
Right. It was a disappointing game. Absolutely. It was, I don't want to say bad for the Big 12 Conference, but it was pretty bad for the Big 12 Conference.
It was really bad.
You know how when you eat food and it's like,
No, I don't.
it's not good for you, but it was a fun time anyway? That was kind of like TCU the whole entire
Are we
season.
talking about food?
Like ice cream.
Okay.
And then they just kind of ate too much ice cream and they threw up and it looked worse than it was. So
Interesting analogy.
yeah, it made no sense, but that's the point.
Like when you eat too much cake and barf it up?
Is there some trauma there?
No.
Okay.
We ate some
Danger
lucha
Cat, get it?
sauce.
Yeah, lucha sauce. Yeah.
We don't have a question on Ward, and I know the VIP stuff is coming your way, but how about that commitment, guys?
Yeah, the dude can play. Again, though, I think he looked at Kansas State and saw, look what they do with a little running back. He's not deuce tiny, but he's not big. And I think that was probably particular attraction to him. But that gets to our point. He had some SEC opportunities. So he picked the school that probably paid him the right amount of NIL money, because I think that's going to be in play here, and also where he had the most opportunity. And I think as players get more mature in how the NIL works, how the transfer portal works, we'll see some more decisions like this. It won't just be the money. It won't just be the playing time. It'll be a mix of the two.
It's not about how much you make. It's about where are you the most valuable.
Right.
On and off the field.
I went over to the 24/7 site for Florida State, and those guys just love Ward and wish him the best. And I have never seen something like that for a player that transfers away. Obviously K-State fans would wish, anybody the best, but at the end of the day, you're like, man, we kind of want you here. And I know if Felix were to transfer now, that wouldn't go over well, you know. But I think his situation was kind of like a Mark Smith. He just needed to change of scenery and has a chance to flourish at K-State.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. That's kind of like my opportunity here.
So it wasn't like Adrian Martinez?
I'm going to pretend that comment never came out of your mouth.
That's funny.
No more questions regarding that. Last question from Email Wildcat 82. Was our performance against Alabama really not that bad after all?
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't. Outside those 3 minutes, you're down by 3. You miss an opportunity to take the lead. You get outscored over 3 minutes by 21 points, and you lose by 25. The math pretty much shows for all but 3 minutes, this was a good football game. And from the second that they missed that pass to take the lead at the end of the first half, it was just awesome. There's no other word for it, what Alabama did. It was just, if you appreciate quality football, it was spectacular. Just the plays they made, an interception. They were prepared on special teams for the onside kick that wasn't executed very well. But, K-State rolled the dice and they hit craps that whole period. And it was amazing football. I saw Bill Snyder do it to teams. Hey, yeah, that was a pretty competitive game for 57 minutes. But how about those 3 where you got crapped on repeatedly? And that's what happened.
It was 21-10 at halftime, correct?
Yes.
You played them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at getting a 17-14 lead, and they're probably going to kneel it out unless they get a good return, and then it's 21-10.
But regardless.
And you don't onside, and you pin them deep, and not getting that touchdown turned that game into what it was.
Right.
So, yeah, it really wasn't that bad after all, because you changed the result of one play. Ben Sinnott's able to catch that ball. It's put on him perfectly in the end zone. 17-14 halftime. You do kick it deep. You eliminate the first half touchdown. So there's, minus 45, minus 7. You're down to 38. Maybe they hold them on that first drive, and you're down to 31.
And you're not Will Howard trying to put the ball in a tight window because you got to make a play.
Right. So that play, not getting that fourth down touchdown, changed the entire game. It was the most critical play of the entire game.
And TCU was never in the national championship. At the end of the day, that's what this question is comparing to. They were never in that game. Besides, they scored a touchdown, made it 10-7. As soon as Georgia drove down, scored another one, the game was over. So, K-State had a legitimate chance to win this game. They didn't, but TCU never really had a legitimate chance to win the national championship.
To your point, Zach, it's like the butterfly effect, and one play just goes wrong, and that's it.
Everything after that has a different context.
Yeah. Think if that doesn't happen.
I do wonder, though, Cole, with what happened to TCU, this was an extremely confident and cocky team, one that used that to come back over and over. How much does this dent that belief in themselves going into next year? You just got humiliated on the biggest stage possible. And as much as the humiliation was Georgia handing it to you, it was also the way you responded and performed. They just looked like they weren't interested. They quit.
I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. And again, I think Sonny Dykes is a good coach. I don't know if he's a great coach, but we're going to find out real quick.
2 years from now, we will know exactly what the book is on Sonny Dykes. When he starts getting more of his players, let's keep in mind, he did this with the backup quarterback, not because the backup quarterback wasn't worthy of playing. He didn't see what Max Duggan was. So by accident, they got there.
I want to know how long Garrett Riley's going to stay at TCU, too. That's also going to be something to monitor.
Yeah.
He's going to be a hot commodity here pretty soon for a head coaching job.
Yep, certainly a smaller school. Yep, and particularly if you want to, replicate what they do at USC, score a lot of points and lose.
Well, TCU did the opposite. They didn't score a lot of points and lost.
Yeah, that took a lot of shine off his star because that was dreadful what they were attempting to. I don't even understand the game plan. Grant, your top running back's out, but your backup did a good job in the semifinals. Give him the ball. Quentin Johnson couldn't get open. I think Quentin Johnson's stock just plummeted. He couldn't get open, but why aren't you rolling out your quarterback and just throwing it deep once in a while? Just run. They didn't try. Did they try a deep ball?
Yeah,
one time.
Couple times.
They hit on one, but it was because there was a confusion in the secondary.
Right.
So,
well, that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't protect in a pocket for long enough, but get him out of the damn pocket. Mm-hmm. That should have been obvious after the first quarter. We got to roll him out. We got to put him. We got to use his legs. It's insane now how they just folded up and said, "We're done. We're losing."
Yep.
Brian, are you with us? You gonna go?
I'm sorry. Did I fail to mention that was the last question?
Did you? I thought you said it was the last one.
I think I did too, Fitz.
He did.
Get it together.
Damn it! I hate it when Gilbert's right.
It doesn't happen often.
Okay. That's it for the Power Cat Questions podcast. A little bit longer than normal. That's what she said. But here we are. We're at the end of this podcast. Make sure you stop into the fridge. Make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing to this podcast. And if you're on Apple, go ahead and leave us a 5-star evaluation. Leave us one of those 5 stars. Zach's putting on his headphone again. I don't know. He's got something. We got 5-star recruit coming to Alabama.
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Power Cat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Hey there, it's Gary Parrish with the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. We are still in the early weeks of conference play, which means there's no better time to tap in. Every Sunday night and Wednesday and Friday mornings, you can expect an episode in your feed highlighting everything you need to know from the sport of college basketball. Conference races, bracketology, coaching rumors. We'll talk about it all and be there with you at least 3 times a week as March Madness approaches. It's the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. To find us, search for Eye on College Basketball in your podcast app of choice.